Tower of Monsters. One day, a disastrous event shocked the world. Numerous monsters began appearing in the tower. Humanity struggled and found itself on the verge of extinction. However, during this time, the first generation of Awakeners, known as the Progenitors, emerged. They faced the monster invasion head-on, demolishing and attacking the towers. Their efforts prevented the monster's invasion and secured a triumph for humanity. The Progenitor became celebrated as the hero who saved the world, a legacy enshrined forever in the Progenitor's mausoleum. Hundreds of years later, we meet our protagonist, Kannagi Minato. As a young boy, Kannagi frequently visited the Progenitor's mausoleum library, where he enjoyed reading the biographies of the Progenitors. He learned of legendary figures: a swordsman who defeated 10,000 soldiers with a single twig, and a mage who could wield all magic without reciting spells. These Awakeners seemed like characters from exaggerated myths. Kannagi aspired to leave his mark on history just like them. One day, an emblem appeared in Kannagi's hand, marking him as a chosen Awakener. Kannagi swore on this emblem that he would leave a legacy in history like the Progenitor. This became his plan and driving force. The scene then shifts to a classroom where all the students are celebrating their success in passing the exam. In contrast, Kannagi is the one who failed. As two students leave to celebrate, they instruct Kannagi to clean up the classroom, calling him senior. They mockingly suggest that if Kannagi were truly an Awakener, he should simply write his name and pass the exam, as is often said during the Hunter qualification exam. Unfortunately, Kannagi had failed this exam 3 years in a row. The exam could be taken once a year for 3 years after admission, and this was Kannagi's last chance. Now, he could no longer become a hunter. While cleaning the classroom, Kannagi reflects that he had perfected the written test and had trained extensively in controlling his aura. His teacher had even confirmed that Kannagi possessed the emblem of an Awakener. Now, Kannagi thinks the emblem is just a useless mark. He had aspired to be like the Progenitor. Suddenly, a student comes in and tells Kannagi to come outside immediately. Outside, a man named Hisako Kaisei, an A-rank hunter, is waiting. As Kannagi runs out, the two students scold him for being late, keeping Kaisei waiting. Kaisei steps forward and admonishes the students, reminding them not to bully the weak, especially with reporters present. The students quickly apologize. The reporters ask Kaisei for a close-up coverage photo, suggesting a scene where Kaisei one-shots a dragon. Kaisei smiles and agrees, though he finds it a bit embarrassing. Kannagi reflects on Kaisei, recalling that he is a genius who entered the school 3 years ago and ranked first in all subjects. When they were in the same class, Kaisei was the one who bullied Kannagi. Frustrated, Kannagi wonders why he has to accompany Kaisei to an interview. The reporters then ask Kaisei about the person next to him. One of his subordinates informs them that the guy's name is Kannagi. Kaisei tells the reporters that Kannagi has poor grades and asked Kaisei for help, so he took time out of his training to give advice and tips. Surprised, Kannagi wonders what nonsense Kaisei is talking about. Kaisei further claims that he sometimes even provided financial help to Kannagi. Frustrated, Kannagi thinks that Kaisei should stop spouting such lies, as he actually took money from Kannagi and made his first year of life miserable. The reporters praise Kaisei for being such a good friend. Kaisei then grabs Kannagi and declares that he will definitely become an Awakener who will leave his name in history. Hearing this, the reporters become excited and ask Kannagi to say something about his life. Kannagi thinks to himself that there is no way such a narrative exists. At that moment, Kaisei tells Kannagi that he failed the exam this year as well and advises him that, no matter how bad the day is, he should always do what is right. Then Kannagi tells the reporters that Kaisei has always been a good friend to him and that he has always been grateful to Kaisei. Kaisei then tells the reporters that they are running out of time and should wrap up the story. He takes the reporters to show them his trophies. Meanwhile, Kannagi thinks to himself that no matter what bad things someone did, if they have the skills to become a hunter, everyone looks up to them and forgets everything else. Suddenly, Kaisei tells Kannagi to come to the Progenitor's mausoleum after school. Shocked, Kannagi asks why. In his mind, Kannagi wonders what Kaisei plans to do now. With a smile, Kaisei tells Kannagi that he must want to take the exam again. Kannagi asks how, and Kaisei replies that he spoke to the association, and they have allowed Kannagi to take the exam again. Kannagi asks why Kaisei would do this for him. Kaisei replies that it's just to build a good image, mentioning that the last photo was taken at the mausoleum. He says they can discuss the details later and insists that Kannagi must come. Hearing this, Kannagi wonders if he should trust Kaisei. He doesn't want Kaisei using him for his image, but it's an unexpected opportunity, and Kannagi is determined to pass the exam this time. The scene shifts to the next day, where the reporters take a photo of Kaisei in front of the mausoleum, labeling him a next-generation genius hunter who vows to protect humanity from monsters. The reporters thank Kaisei for taking the time to cover this story despite his busy schedule. Kaisei thanks the reporters for writing the article. As the reporters leave, Kaisei enters the mausoleum and asks his subordinate if they have found the entrance. It turns out they have, and Kaisei asks them to bring the goods to him. At that moment, Kannagi arrives and asks Kaisei what he and his friends are doing. Kaisei replies that they are on a treasure hunt. Frustrated, Kannagi states that this so-called treasure hunt is actually grave robbing and asks if Kaisei knows what lies down there. Kaisei dismissively responds that whatever it is, it's just an old mummified thing. Kaisei argues that he could become a billionaire by selling the items and questions why he should let them go. He dismisses the significance of the progenitor and the mausoleum as nonsense. Kannagi, who has always revered the progenitor and aspired to be like him, becomes enraged and tries to strike Kaisei. However, Kaisei steps forward and kicks Kannagi hard in the stomach, causing him to fall to the ground. At that moment, Kaisei's friends emerge with the items they found. Kaisei declares that these items will ensure his comfort forever. He then turns to Kannagi and reveals that he was looking for a student like him, someone desperate enough to believe in the lie of re-examination. Kaisei had heard a rumor that Kannagi often visited the library and thought he was the perfect target. Grabbing Kannagi, Kaisei states that when Kannagi's dream of becoming a hunter failed, he became frustrated and gave up. Kaisei plans to spin a story that, after stealing the founder's treasure that Kannagi always admired, Kannagi went missing, turning it into a tragic tale. The main news tomorrow will probably feature this story. Then Kaisei takes Kannagi to a cliff and states that Kannagi will be accused of stealing treasures from the progenitor's mausoleum, as the police would claim. After being in the hunter training center for 3 years, Kaisei pushes Kannagi into the river. As Kannagi struggles in the water, he wonders if this is the end. All the training and tests he took over and over again now seemed useless, and he would disappear without being remembered by anyone. At that moment, the souls of all the previous progenitors appear before Kannagi. They state that this kid is qualified and capable of making their wishes come true. Kannagi doesn't understand what's happening. The souls inform him that they are the heroic spirits slumbering in the mausoleum. Kannagi is shocked to see that these are all the progenitors he has heard and read about. They explain that the mark on Kannagi's hand is empty, though it currently lacks power. However, it can contain all the power that enters it. The souls tell Kannagi to choose one of the progenitors and make a contract with them, as they are all experts in their respective fields: magic, martial arts, swordsmanship, spearmanship, summoning, and alchemy. Whoever Kannagi chooses will grant him more power than he could imagine. The souls ask Kannagi whose power he wants. Kannagi states that he doesn't want to lose to anyone in this world and desires overwhelming power, enough to overcome all obstacles. The mark on Kannagi's hand begins to shine with a blue aura. The souls of the progenitors urge Kannagi to make a decision quickly. Kannagi declares that he wants the power of all the progenitors. The souls reply that Kannagi is being too greedy and that it's impossible to possess all their powers. They warn that no matter how powerful they are, Kannagi cannot have everything. Kannagi insists, telling them not to argue, as he wants all of their powers. The souls warn him that absorbing so much power might kill him. Despite this, Kannagi absorbs all the progenitors' powers, causing a huge splash in the river. Kaisei turns around and sees Kannagi, whose hair has turned light blue and is surrounded by a blue aura. Kannagi grabs a tree branch. Kaisei's friends start to mock Kannagi, asking what he plans to do with that stick. Kaisei orders his friends to take down Kannagi immediately. Hearing this, one of them conjures a red sword, claiming it is the weapon of an expert who has reached the highest level of mastery. As the man charges at Kannagi, Kannagi uses the tree branch as a sword and defeats him. With a serious expression, Kannagi demands to know where and how the man acquired the sword. Kaisei and his other friend are shocked by this turn of events. The other man then uses 7th grade magic to strike at Kannagi. However, Kannagi, without reciting any spells, uses a spell named Haddad and defeats him. Kaisei is astonished, unable to believe that Kannagi could take down an opponent with a mere twig and use magic without reciting a spell. Kaisei reflects on how this situation resembles the tales from 100 years ago. A swordsman who defeated 10,000 soldiers and a mage who could wield all magic without reciting spells. It is just like the exaggerated myths of the Awakeners buried in the progenitor's mausoleum, whose souls now reside within Kannagi Minato, all 106 progenitors. Kannagi thinks this situation is amazing. His body is now inhabited by the spirits of the progenitors through the empty mark. He feels a surge of joy. Meanwhile, the souls inside Kannagi are conversing and complaining about the lack of space and how they are experiencing their first sense of freedom in hundreds of years. Kannagi reflects that he has read biographies of great people so many times that he has memorized their contents. The progenitors from those biographies are now inside him. The progenitors are excited and propose a competition to see who can take over Kannagi's body. At that moment, one of the legendary progenitor's souls addresses Kannagi. Kannagi recognizes the voice of Hinoki Ryuichiro, the legendary swordsman who defeated 10,000 soldiers with a twig. Hinoki remarks that his name is still famous even in future generations. He then asks Kannagi what his plans are. When Kannagi inquires if Hinoki is referring to Kaisei, Hinoki replies that there is something else Kannagi should be concerned about. With that, Kannagi moves forward. Seeing this, Kaisei commands to stop moving forward and prepares to strike. However, Kannagi punches Kaisei, sending him flying into a tree, which is then enveloped by a dark aura. The scene shifts to the city, where a wolf monster has emerged from the tower and is attacking. Among the crowd, a hunter defeats the wolf with a single decisive strike. The new hunters are impressed to see an A-class monster taken down with one strike, which is what they expect from an S-rank hunter. The hunter is identified as Kisaragi, an S-rank hunter. Kannagi wonders how Kaisei is faring, recalling Kaisei's previous interview where he described himself as a rising star. Kisaragi feels a sense of responsibility toward Kaisei. If Kaisei gains attention, it could increase the popularity of Kisaragi's guild as well. Suddenly, Kisaragi senses dark energy, which most of the new hunters cannot withstand. He realizes that the aura pressure is too much for B, or A-rank hunters, indicating that the threat is likely an S-class or higher monster requiring a large-scale coordinated attack. The scene then returns to the mausoleum. A dark monster emerges in front of Kannagi and Kaisei. Shocked, Kaisei is bewildered by the presence of the monster and its sudden appearance. Kannagi explains that it is because Kaisei disturbed the mausoleum, where one of the tower bosses was sealed. Hinoki tells Kannagi that among the monsters in the tower, some escaped death with dormant skills, and the monster before them is called the Bell of Nothingness. Hinoki further explains that this monster emits a poisonous aura that can incapacitate humans within a few kilometers. It was a common monster in the past, but it seems too powerful for young people today. Seeing the monster, Kaisei attempts to flee. Kannagi advises him not to move, as it would make Kaisei the monster's first target. The monster then attacks Kaisei, taking him down. Hinoki then asks Kannagi if he will completely relinquish his body to him, as Hinoki is the most powerful swordsman. In his mind, Hinoki plans to take advantage of the chaos and seize control of Kannagi's mark. Kannagi tells Hinoki that he is willing to do that. Seeing this, the other progenitors become angry with Hinoki for attempting to take over Kannagi's body. Kannagi then announces that he will allow everyone to take control of his body. The progenitors are surprised by this statement. Kannagi asserts that he will surpass them all, and in his mind, he thinks that this is a power he must overcome someday. He wants to understand its full extent, which is why he wants all the legendary progenitors to demonstrate their true powers. Hinoki is puzzled by Kannagi's determination and suggests they should proceed properly. Kannagi then attacks the monster using Hinoki's sword technique, successfully damaging parts of it. He follows up by using the powers of the other legendary progenitors, striking the monster with each of their abilities. Finally, Kannagi combines mage magic and Hinoki's sword technique to deliver a decisive strike, defeating the monster. Meanwhile, a crow watches Kannagi's fight. The scene then shifts to the city, where a man is talking on the phone. He is surprised to hear that the monster, which had been emitting such intense energy, has been defeated. The man mentions that he was heading in the direction of the monster. He then inquires if there was a powerful hunter nearby. The person on the other end of the phone explains that they found the video through their crow summon and reveals that it was a student from the Hunter Training Center who defeated the monster. The man talking on the phone is Ichihara Midori, the world's strongest awakened, and he is eager to meet Kannagi. After Ichihara defeats the monsters, he calls the director to ask if the director has reviewed the video sent via the crow. He mentions that the student, Minato Kannagi, is the one who took down the monster. However, this student had struggled to pass the hunter exam for 3 consecutive years. Ichihara expresses his disbelief and requests a favor from the director. The scene shifts to the Hunter Training Center, where students are discussing the intense aura they felt. Many students are still feeling unwell and unable to move. One student boasts to his friend that he was the one who defeated the monster. His friend dismisses this claim, noting that it has been 10 years since an S-class or higher monster appeared, and there were rumors that a student from their school was responsible for taking it down. Kannagi, walking with a stick, overhears the students discussing the events of the previous night. As he walks, a student pushes him, causing him to fall to the ground. Kannagi reflects that while it was fortunate he defeated the monster, the influence of the progenitors using their powers had an impact on him. Kannagi's whole body is shattered. Hinoki urges him to regain his composure, reminding him that he had expressed a desire to surpass the progenitors. Motivated by this, Kannagi responds affirmatively, determined to do so. Hinoki observes that the modern awakeners are significantly below the level of the progenitors, noting that their abilities are only marginally better than those of average people. He remarks that if the tower had appeared now, the world would have been destroyed instantly. As Kannagi attempts to get up, Hinoki suddenly senses great power emanating from someone within the school. Kannagi inquires about this, but Hinoki dismisses it as inconsequential. At that moment, a student approaches Kannagi and instructs him to come quickly. Kannagi apologizes, speculating that this may be related to the discharge process. At the training center, candidates are given 3 opportunities to take the hunter exam. Having exhausted his chances, Kannagi is no longer eligible to take the exam through the training center and must retake the general admission exam. The student clarifies that this situation is not about the lost opportunities, but rather an urgent re-examination that Kannagi must attend immediately. Kannagi is surprised by the news. The other students question if there is a re-examination system for the hunter exam. As Kannagi steps outside, he resolves to do his best, even though he knows it won't be perfect. The first challenge is a 100-meter run, with an average time of 3.6 seconds and the best time at 2.7 seconds. One of the students comments that Kannagi is a well-known, long-term training center student, speculating that perhaps the Hunter Association felt sympathy for him after his repeated failures and decided to give him another chance. To their astonishment, Kannagi completes the 100-meter run in just 1.6 seconds, the 3,000-meter run in 1 minute and 17 seconds, and performs 840 push-ups in 2 minutes. For the bench press, Kannagi lifts 1,280 kilograms. The students are amazed, seeing that all previous records have been shattered by more than double. They declare that Kannagi is a monster. Kannagi then asks Hinoki if the progenitors lent their strength to him for this event. Hinoki replies that no one helped Kannagi, as all the progenitors are merely observing. The scene shifts to the director's room. Ichihara's assistant shows him the current records of Kannagi Minato. Observing the records, Ichihara remarks that they are impressive. The director informs Ichihara that upon receiving the request for a re-examination, they were puzzled by the circumstances. The director adds that while Kannagi's abilities are indeed remarkable, there is a significant issue with measuring his mana. The student has scored consistently across all tests for 3 years, which suggests that Kannagi's mana is effectively 0. The director doubts the utility of getting their hopes up. Ichihara's assistant expresses skepticism about the claim of Kannagi having 0 mana. Ichihara, however, remains calm and suggests they simply observe Kannagi for now. The scene shifts to the mana measurement station. where the instructor instructs Kannagi to turn the windmill using mana for 30 seconds. The number of revolutions achieved will be recorded. Kannagi reflects that despite his efforts over the past 3 years, the windmill never seemed to move. He has never felt mana, let alone managed to control it. Kannagi realizes that it's all about the cycle. Starting from the tip of his right foot, moving around, and then returning to the tip of the right foot. He accelerates this flow through his breathing and then channels it out through the palm of his hand. As the test begins, Kannagi releases his mana, causing the windmill to start spinning. The windmill accelerates at an incredible speed, leaving the instructor stunned and unable to keep track of the records. Eventually, the windmill breaks down, and the fan flies straight into the director's office. Ichihara's assistant asks what is happening, and Ichihara responds that Kannagi seems to be a case similar to his own. It has been a long time since someone has been so immeasurable. Back on the ground, everyone, including Kannagi himself, is astonished by the event. The instructor informs Kannagi that he has passed the hunter exam. The crowd erupts in cheers for Kannagi, who has not only passed but also broken all the records. Kannagi thanks the instructor for his support. Kannagi can't believe that he has passed the exam. On the other hand, Hinoki considers this outcome to be expected, given that the powers of the progenitors have awakened the dormant ability in Kannagi's mark. Hinoki smiles, realizing that Kannagi was not just an ordinary student with an empty mark. He reflects that it was worth waiting hundreds of years for this moment, and believes Kannagi might fulfill the progenitor's wishes. Suddenly, a radiant aura appears before Kannagi. Hinoki recognizes it as the same massive energy he felt earlier that morning. The figure reveals itself to be Ichihara. Kannagi is stunned to see Ichihara Midori, the strongest awakener of this era. He is puzzled as to why someone like Ichihara is present. Ichihara shakes Kannagi's hand and congratulates him on passing the hunter exam. Kannagi wonders how Ichihara knows his name. Ichihara then explains that there will be an additional test, delivering a corner blow to the world's strongest. Kannagi is shocked to hear this. Ichihara Midori, 23 years old, is an awakener who became a hunter at the age of 9, delivering an outstanding performance. No one would dare to challenge him, as Ichihara is regarded as the strongest in the world, having defeated 1,000 monsters in a single battle. Weak monsters or hunters are overwhelmed by Ichihara's mere gaze. He single-handedly dealt with the Pandemonium incident 10 years ago and the Kyushu outbreak 5 years ago. Ichihara is a true living legend. Hinoki, excited, tells Kannagi to switch places with him. The students are astonished to see Ichihara there. Ichihara explains to Kannagi that the rules are simple. If Kannagi can hit Ichihara within 1 minute, he wins. There are no penalties, and Ichihara will only attack once every 10 seconds, taking it easy and not using any skills. Ichihara then summons various weapons, from which Kannagi can choose. Shocked, Kannagi wonders when Ichihara acquired these weapons and what the purpose of this additional exam is. Now, Kannagi must face Ichihara Midori for 1 minute. Kannagi asks Ichihara if it is permissible for him to use a weapon. Ichihara replies that it is, as his body is stronger than any sword. No matter how powerful a sword Kannagi brings, Ichihara can cut it with ease. Demonstrating his prowess, Ichihara effortlessly slices the sword in half. Kannagi is stunned by this display of skill. Hinoki, astonished, tells Kannagi to switch places with him, expressing disbelief that such a person exists, and remarks that this era is not so bad after all. Kannagi realizes that Hinoki is also excited, understanding that Ichihara's extraordinary talent has even piqued the interest of a progenitor. Kannagi knows there is little chance of winning, but resolves to give it his best effort. As the other students gather to watch the match between Ichihara and Kannagi, Hinoki, frustrated, insists that Kannagi switch with him, but Kannagi remains resolute. With the timer started by Ichihara, Kannagi grabs a sword and charges at Ichihara with full force. Hinoki wonders what Kannagi is trying to achieve. Meanwhile, Kannagi acknowledges that this approach is reckless but believes that to become a legend himself, he must test his limits against the legendary figure of this era. As Kannagi strikes at Ichihara, Ichihara effortlessly dodges the attacks while using his phone. The gathered students are astonished to see Ichihara evading Kannagi's strikes with such ease, even managing to check his phone. Kannagi continues to swing his sword from various angles, but Ichihara remains unharmed. Some students comment that nothing seems to be working, while one observes that Kannagi's strikes appear relentless. Kannagi attempts a diagonal strike, followed by left and right slashes, but Ichihara avoids each one effortlessly. Kannagi is impressed by this, noting that his body moves in sync with his thoughts and that he never seems to tire, possibly due to the progenitor's powers. He feels a significant difference in his body compared to before. At that moment, Ichihara places his finger on Kannagi's forehead and prepares to flick it. However, Kannagi manages to dodge the flick, which subsequently creates a crack in the ground. Kannagi realizes that nothing is going to be easy in this battle. Had Kannagi not avoided it, he might have sustained serious injuries. On the other hand, Ichihara finds it unusual that he cannot control his strength. Kannagi feels no real threat from Ichihara, but he realizes that if this continues, he might be in serious danger. He recalls how he managed to defeat the monster earlier and shifts his stance to strike Ichihara again. The other students are surprised to see that Kannagi has increased his speed, but Ichihara easily dodges the attack. Ichihara notes that while Kannagi's sword movements have become faster, he was far more agile when he defeated the S-class monster. The atmosphere around Kannagi seems to have changed, leading Ichihara to wonder if there is some sort of trigger condition or if Kannagi is concealing something. As it is time for Ichihara to strike, he dodges Kannagi's attack and flicks him in the chest. Kannagi is sent flying into the wall, finding the situation abnormal and perplexing, given that his opponent is the world's strongest awakener and the force of the attack was immense. If Kannagi had received such an attack in the past, he would have already been dead. He finds this experience exhilarating and can't believe how much stronger he has become. Despite his current skills, Kannagi realizes that passing this test seems unlikely. Nevertheless, he intends to fight with all his might for the remaining time. Kannagi closes the distance with Ichihara, who steps aside and apologizes, noting that Kannagi only now seems to grasp the situation. As the 30 seconds elapse, Ichihara strikes Kannagi on the neck, causing him to fall to the ground. Ichihara thinks that while Kannagi has potential, it is not yet sufficient to meet his expectations. As Ichihara prepares to leave, he is surprised to sense a dense energy emanating from Kannagi. Turning around, Ichihara notices that Kannagi's hair has turned blue again, indicating that Hinoki has swapped places with him while he was unconscious. Hinoki now has full control over Kannagi's body and suggests to Ichihara that they should continue their sparring. Ichihara, excited, realizes that this is the energy he has been sensing for a while, which caused him difficulty in controlling his strength. He wonders whether this is the result of someone else's skill or an innate ability, but there is no doubt that Kannagi has transformed into a formidable opponent. Hinoki goes for a strike, but Ichihara easily dodges it. Ichihara notes that Kannagi's movements have changed. Both his speed and power are on an entirely different level than before, and his swordsmanship has improved significantly. As Hinoki strikes with incredible speed, Ichihara continues to evade the attacks, backing off as Hinoki uses a diagonal sword strike. Despite the increased intensity, Ichihara manages to avoid the attack by ducking. The students, alarmed by the escalating combat, begin to move away from the building. Meanwhile, Ichihara observes that Kannagi's swordplay has evolved from being cautious to fluid and instinctive. It's as if Kannagi now anticipates Ichihara's movements and responds with the natural grace of flowing water, a sword that moves freely and unpredictably, like a powerful wave. As the 10-second mark approaches, Ichihara smiles and remarks that Kannagi's skill is truly worthy of defeating an S-class monster. He then goes to strike at Hinoki, but Hinoki deftly dodges the attack and counters with a sword infused with aura. Ichihara leaps into the air to avoid the strike, his agility reminiscent of Gojo. With a smile, Ichihara comments that he finds the combat truly thrilling. The students, watching in amazement, are surprised to see Ichihara excelling only in defense. Angered, Hinoki demands that Ichihara discard the rules, warning that if Ichihara continues in this manner, Hinoki will end up defeating him. As Hinoki lunges forward to close the distance, Ichihara decides to get more serious. He kicks a rock towards the weapons he had previously summoned, causing them to rain down from the sky. Ichihara then leaps into the air, seizing a spear, and charges at Hinoki. Hinoki meets Ichihara's attack with a counterstrike, and the two engage in a fierce weapon fight. They appear evenly matched as they battle with their weapons, thrilling the onlookers. The students are stunned by the display, witnessing both combatants fully embracing the fight with palpable excitement. All the progenitors are watching the battle with great interest, finding it thrilling to see Ichihara going head-to-head with Hinoki. They are thoroughly enjoying the spectacle. Kannagi is also observing the fight, and the mage progenitor notices that Kannagi is intently analyzing Hinoki's fighting style. As the match progresses, Hinoki's sword breaks. Ichihara, finding the fight exhilarating, revels in the excitement rather than boredom. With Hinoki now weaponless, Ichihara considers whether to use a blunt weapon or a bow. Smiling with the same enthusiasm Gojo showed when he fought Toji, Ichihara remarks that there are only 10 seconds remaining and wonders what Hinoki will do next. Hinoki then leaps towards a building, retrieves a student's sword, and states that he is borrowing it. At that moment, Ichihara moves behind Hinoki and delivers a powerful mana-infused punch, causing a massive explosion. Despite the attack, Hinoki manages to evade and prepares to strike back at Ichihara with his newly acquired sword. Ichihara, smiling, effortlessly dodges all of Hinoki's strikes. He then grabs the windmill fan with his incredible strength and throws it toward Hinoki with full force. To Ichihara's surprise, Hinoki manages to slice the windmill fan into small pieces using his one-dice sword technique. Impressed by this, Ichihara observes Hinoki's move and sees an opening. Hinoki attempts to strike Ichihara, but Ichihara cuts Hinoki's sword into pieces. Ichihara then channels mana into his hand and delivers a powerful final attack, making it his most forceful move yet. Hinoki, believing he is defeated, is taken aback when Kannagi suddenly switches places with him. Kannagi deflects Ichihara's attack with a flick of his hand, altering its direction and shocking both Ichihara and Hinoki. However, this action results in severe injury to Kannagi's hand. The battle between these ultimate talents is an endless contest, akin to a breathtaking chess game between two masters, with no clear match. Impressed, Hinoki acknowledges that Kannagi has blazed a new path. As the match progresses, the intensity continues to rise. Kannagi sees an opening and attempts to punch Ichihara, but to his surprise, Ichihara blocks the punch just before it makes contact. Kannagi realizes that he cannot reach Ichihara, but Ichihara places his hand on Kannagi's cheek and, smiling, informs him that he has passed the exam. As they come down, Ichihara calls for his assistant, Rin. When Rin arrives, she asks Ichihara how the exam went. Ichihara replies that Kannagi passed, and that it was an enjoyable experience. He also notes that Kannagi's arm is seriously injured and instructs Rin to treat him. The students begin to cheer for Kannagi upon hearing from Ichihara that he managed to pass the additional exam, which means Kannagi successfully landed a hit on Ichihara. Rin tells Kannagi to remain still while she tends to his arm. Surprised and grateful, Kannagi thanks Rin for her help. Rin also congratulates him on passing the exam. Kannagi is astonished to learn that he landed a hit on Ichihara and passed the exam. From behind, Ichihara reminds Kannagi that he did indeed succeed, startling him. Ichihara then adds that he feels he might have awarded a few extra points. Although a pass is still a pass, Kannagi's performance, particularly his continuous attacks, was impressive. Kannagi had thought it was Hinoki who put him through his paces, but Ichihara appreciated how Kannagi skillfully dodged his final strike. Ichihara remarked that it was truly amazing and that Kannagi should be proud of his achievement. Kannagi then inquires about what happens next now that he has passed the exam. The scene shifts to Kannagi's house, where his mother asks how many people will be visiting their home today. As Kannagi cleans the house, he replies that he's not sure, maybe 1 or 2. Kannagi's mother comments that it's a lovely day, especially since Kannagi passed the hunter exam and even attracted the attention of the renowned Ichihara. She has always believed that Kannagi would succeed if he put his mind to it. Hearing this, Kannagi smiles with happiness. However, his mother then expresses concern about whether it's appropriate for someone as famous as Ichihara to visit their modest home, feeling it is too shabby. Kannagi reassures her that Ichihara is not like that. After finishing the cleaning, Kanagi goes to his room. The scene then shifts to the day of the match, where Rin has Ichihara in a leg lock. Ichihara reminds Kanagi that he had previously mentioned if Kanagi won, he would become Ichihara's colleague. Kanagi replies that he does not recall hearing that. Ichihara then notes that there are many people watching and asks if he can visit Kanagi's house this evening to discuss the details and present the options regarding their real enemy. Kanagi wonders what Ichihara means by real enemy, as the tower was destroyed by the progenitor a long time ago, and the current role of hunters is to defeat monsters that escape from dimensional cracks. Kanagi questions whether there could be something more. Hinoki then tells Kanagi to get up, causing Kanagi to ask in shock why all the legendary progenitors have gathered. Hinoki explains that they have been discussing something important. Kanagi asks what they have been discussing and, alarmed, inquires if they have decided who will take over his body. Hinoki was about to say something when Kanagi heard a noise and went to check, wondering if Ichihara had arrived. As Kanagi came downstairs, he was surprised by the darkness and shocked to find his mother lying on the ground. Rushing to her side, Kanagi saw a man sitting at the table, eating food. Kanagi asked the man who he was, what he was doing there, and what he had done to his mother. The man introduced himself as Hitani Goro, an S-rank hunter and one of Ichihara's colleagues. Angered, Kanagi attempted to punch Hitani, but Hitani easily dodged the strike and asked if Kanagi wanted to fight. Kanagi remembered how his father had died, how his mother had raised him alone, worn old shoes to work to provide him a better life, and always made dinner for him. Filled with rage, Kanagi demanded to know what Hitani had done to his mother. Hinoki, observing the situation, remarked that Kanagi's opponent was a modern-age S-rank hunter and that the situation was advantageous. Although Hinoki could sense that Hitani was a copy of Ichihara, this fight would allow Hinoki and the other progenitors to determine what to do about Hitani. Meanwhile, Kanagi, enveloped in a blue aura, seethed with anger. Hi everyone, the main character's full name is Kanagi Midori, so in the second part, we will use our MC's surname, Midori. Richiro stands with the other founders, satisfied that from this fight, they will finally know how they, the founders, should treat Minato from now on. Goro calls our boy's angry face cute as he charges forward to attack. Minato stays focused and grabs Goro's hand, flipping him into the air. From within him, one of the founders, an elder, notices that it's his own attack being used, the one he once used while fighting the monster. In no time, Goro is thrown out of the house through the window as the wall cracks on impact. Minato walks toward him as Goro steadies himself, questioning if that was Aikido. Goro had watched Minato's fight with Midori earlier that afternoon in a video. He admits that Minato not only has tremendous presence and swordsmanship, but also great technique. Minato walks closer, saying that as an A-rank hunter, Goro is indeed sturdier than Midori. Blue energy surrounds him as he demands that Goro quickly answer what he did to his mother. Goro smiles widely and says that from Minato's words, it seems he doesn't know. Then he confesses that it was poison. Goro adds that Minato's mother was getting in his way, so he simply put her to sleep. With a smirk, he adds that if she's lucky, she might recover with only minor side effects. Minato stands still, asking why Goro would harm the family of someone who could have been his comrade. Standing face to face with Minato, Goro bursts into laughter and steps forward to attack, but Minato dodges. Goro mocks the very idea of comradeship, finding it amusing as he prepares another attack. He adds that Minato would never become their comrade. Even if he did, they would only turn him into a follower who obeys every order. A grin spreads across Goro's face as he calls Minato naive, claiming he'd surely obey the moment they held his loved ones hostage. As they fight, Goro steps on Minato's foot, but Minato instantly notices and steps back. As they face each other, Minato feels his cheek burning. Suddenly, his cheek starts turning blue, and Goro, with sharp needles emerging from his nails, says that it's already working. He explains that he has a skill allowing him to produce dozens of poisons from his body. As Goro releases another toxin, he calls the mission bothersome and says that if he wanted, he could release a deadly gas within a 5-kilometer radius, though he can't do that in the middle of the city. Goro adds that this particular poison will take Minato's life within a minute. He tells Minato that if he agrees to join their organization, he'll make the antidote. Otherwise, he'll face the consequences. Minato looks at him, thinking about the toxic gas that could affect such a wide area. He realizes that Goro must be in S rank, since for an ordinary person, this level of power would be catastrophic. As the poison starts to overwhelm him, Minato calls out to Valentine, the god of medicine. She answers from within as Minato asks if she can teach him how to detoxify the poison later. Goro steps closer, asking if the fear of death has already taken over Minato and questions what he's mumbling. Minato dodges and says that the Aikido earlier was from the god of hands, Kodo Hayoma. The realization hits Hayoma that Minato has been copying his attack from the start. Meanwhile, Minato names every single founder, the 10,000 Army Slasher Hinoki Ryukyren, the Blue Spear of Destruction Shimer classes, the Heavy Bow Margit, and others. He declares that every time he fights, he studies and remembers all of them from the records. Minato adds that the founders he has always admired now reside within him. As a result, Goro stares in confusion while Minato says he has no reason to be afraid of him. Frustrated, Goro charges forward, vowing to teach Minato what true pain feels like. Long needles extend from his nails as he claims the next toxin will make Minato beg him to stop. He attacks, but Minato narrowly avoids it, and the poison lands on a nearby tree, making it wither instantly. As Goro leans forward to attack again, he says that if Minato kneels and begs, he might offer relief with an antidote. Rushing in, Goro adds that once Minato is overtaken by pain, he'll never return to normal after losing his sanity to it. Laughing, he lunges forward. Minato steadies himself as blue energy flares around him. He prepares for the strike and unleashes the fist of a saint, the attack of One-Tak. The blow lands directly on Goro's chest, sending him crashing into the wall behind him. Without wasting a moment, Minato dashes forward again, using the Feet of Light, the attack of Eilerson, and kicks Goro's face, sending him flying down the street. Goro regains balance and charges once more with his sharp, needle-like weapons, but in an instant, Minato shatters them, countering with the attack of Corral, the sharp beak, striking Goro directly in the chest again. He then uses the attack of Rowan, the dragon's claw, and finally the attack of Lilac, the flipper. Minato sends Goro flying high into the sky, making Goro wonder what kind of person Minato truly is. Shocked and wounded, Goro thinks that normally, when someone is exposed to poison, their judgment becomes clouded and their movements sluggish. The toxin should already be affecting Minato's nervous system. Meanwhile, from the group, Minato looks up and uses the Magus of Truth, Meltas Silencious' attack, as golden thunder energy bursts from his hand. The sky lights up with power, making every founder stare in awe. At the same time, Richiro confirms with the others that just after defeating the monster once, Minato is already copying all their moves, both physical and magical. Richiro adds that he doesn't care whether Minato's power comes from the crest of nothingness or not. He still finds him fascinating. Minato sits beside his mother as everyone watches him on a screen, admitting that if he's trained by the founders, Minato will become the strongest awakener. Elsewhere, hooded men rush forward as one reminds the others not to slack off, saying that 15 organizations are already on the move to capture Minato, who fought with Midori, and adds that they need to hurry. Suddenly, Midori appears behind the man, remarking that there are too many of them. He adds that if there are 15 in total, this one should be the last, and swiftly attacks. With a snap of his fingers, a burst of green energy surges forward, neutralizing the man instantly. Meanwhile, Midori stands still and calls for Rin. On the other end, Rin responds that she's arrived and confirms that no awakeners have been detected nearby. Standing atop an electric pole, she observes that someone must have arrived before them, which confuses Midori. She explains that an S-rank hunter, Goro, the poison user, had come to visit Minato but was defeated. Soon after, Midori arrives in front of Minato's house. Clapping, he praises Minato, saying he's impressed and never expected him to actually defeat an S-rank hunter. He asks if Minato is okay and whether he was exposed to the poison. Minato scratches his cheek and admits that he was, but reassures him that both he and his mother are fine. His mother rests on the couch as, from within him, Richiro questions what he means by fine and remarks that without Valentine's help, Minato would have been in serious danger. He then calls out to Valentine, complimenting her efficiency for finishing everything in just 5 seconds. She replies that since the one producing the poison was already there, extracting a sample and neutralizing it was quite simple. At the same time, Midori apologizes for being late, explaining that he was busy taking precautions against the many organizations targeting Minato because of today's video. At first, Minato looks confused, but then realizes that this means Goro was lying when he claimed to be Midori's comrade. Midori confirms it, saying that there are always people who try to use his name for their own gain. He then asks Rin if she's finished her work. She nods, saying she's taken care of everything and repaired the damage caused during the fight with Goro. With a smile, Midori tells Minato to let's go inside and have a talk about Minato's future. In the morning, Minato stands outside his house with his luggage, ready to leave. His mother fusses over him, asking if he's really okay, whether he's forgotten anything, and whether he has his wallet and charger. Minato smiles, assuring her that he's fine and that she shouldn't worry so much. Her thoughts drift back to their conversation with Midori and Rin. She had asked if her son was really going to stay with Midori, and Midori had replied that Minato possessed an undiscovered talent. He asked her to entrust Minato to him, promising to turn him into a great hunter. Minato had lit up with excitement, calling it awesome and exclaiming that he'd been chosen by Midori. But his mother had remained quiet. Back in the present, she hands Minato his lunch, reminding him that he skipped breakfast. She tells him she packed it in a container and that he can throw it away if he doesn't like it. Minato shakes his head, saying he's fine. He then recalls another part of that conversation, when his mother asked if he would face many dangerous situations in the future. Midori had nodded, admitting that he would. She had told him that Minato had always admired the legendary founders and had struggled to reach their level. She said it would be an honor if Midori took her son under his wing, but as a parent, she was still worried. Midori had understood completely, saying that a hunter's duty was to face monsters and that there's no such thing as certainty. Still, he promised to train Minato until he became strong enough to stand against even the founders. Hearing that, Minato's mother finally agreed, entrusting her son to Midori. Now, in the present, Midori sits in the car parked in front of Minato's house. Rin sits next to him, asking if it was really okay to make such a bold promise when they don't even know what the future holds. Midori doesn't answer. His eyes shift toward Minato and his mother. She scolds Minato not tells him to do the laundry properly, as Minato nods at everything. Back in the car, Midori says quietly that he will keep his promise as best as he can. Outside, Minato turns to his mother, saying it's time for him to go and asking her to wish him luck. He tells her to take care as he climbs into the car. His mother calls his name one last time and, with a smile, asks him to come home during the new year. Her words hit him deeply, and he grows emotional. A moment later, Minato apologizes for keeping them waiting as the car pulls away. Inside, Midori glances at him and asks if he's done saying goodbye. Minato nods, admitting that if he'd looked at his mother's face even once more, his resolve would have crumbled. Midori smiles and tells him that it's going to be a long trip and he can do whatever he wants, eat or sleep. Hearing that, Minato looks down at the lunch his mother packed for him. He opens the box and finds rice and chicken inside. Written across the chicken and sauce are the words, "Good luck." Memories of his mother flood his mind. With teary eyes, he thanks her silently for the food, whispering that it's delicious. After a long drive, they finally reach their destination. Midori welcomes him, explaining that only a handful of Awakeners are allowed here in the Anti-Prophecy Unit, also known as the Anti-Provincial Unit. He tells Minato this is their headquarters. Minato gazes around in awe, repeating the name. From a window above, a white-haired man notices their arrival and calls out to the others, saying the new member has arrived. A black-haired girl asks if he's talking about the newcomer, while another guy comments that it's rare to see a new recruit. Then, a red-haired guy steps forward, eyeing Minato and saying they'll have to see for themselves whether he's truly qualified to be part of the Anti-Prophecy Unit. In the car, he apologizes as he asks what it is and wonders if it might be Midori's guild. Rin steps in, apologizing for delaying the explanation. She admits she couldn't explain it properly to his mother because it's the top nation's secret. Minato freaks out upon hearing that, while Midori calmly says that they'll discuss everything soon. As they step out of the car, Midori mentions that they need to bring Minato's luggage to his room first, and Rin offers to carry it. Minato refuses, saying he can handle it himself. Suddenly, a figure leaps down from above, declaring that he'll be the one to explain everything to Minato. The man lands straight on him, forcing Minato to shield himself. The golden-haired guy looks impressed and comments that Minato is pretty good, while Minato immediately senses his strength and questions who he is. The man straightens up and introduces himself as Anata Hyukaru, a member of the anti-prophecy unit and Minato's comrade. Minato looks shocked, thinking that this is the one who's supposed to explain things to him. Soon after, Midori sits in the car with Rin, asking for tea, while Minato and Anata begin to spar. Minato demands to know why they're doing this despite being comrades, but Anata replies mid-battle that it's to explain the anti-prophecy to him and to test his skills as well. Minato braces himself, confused about what he means by testing his skills, just before Anata suddenly leaps and lands a powerful kick, sending waves of energy across the area. As Minato blocks the attack, Anata says he'll start by explaining the origin of the anti-prophecy unit. Minato, struggling to keep up, wonders if this guy really plans to explain everything during the fight. Anata rushes forward again, asking for Minato's name, and Minato quickly introduces himself. Meanwhile, Midori sits quietly, sipping his tea. He thinks about how Minato was tested by the academy, by himself, by an S rank, and even now, he's being tested again. He glances at Rin, asking if it's what she's thinking. Rin says that it can't be helped since Minato's talent is something Midori personally scouted. Back in the fight, Anata lands one strike after another and then asks what a hunter's job is. Minato answers that it's to hunt down the monsters that appear from the dimensional cracks. Anata says that's correct, then lunges forward to land another kick. Minato dodges as Anata lands on the ground, adding that. Then he asks about the dangers beyond that, and Minato looks confused. Anata mutters that in this world, there are threats lurking far beyond the dimensional cracks. He then mentions the pandemonium, the castle of 10,000 demons, the catastrophe from 10 years ago, and the great outbreak of Kyushu about 5 years ago. Minato understands immediately, calling them large-scale dimensional breaks, as he blocks another attack from Anata. Anata says it's something they'll teach Minato at the academy, common public knowledge, while Minato continues to struggle with his attacks. Anata strikes again with a powerful kick as golden energy spreads around them, saying that in reality, things are different. His kick almost lands on Minato, but Minato manages to escape just in time, and the blow hits a nearby tree, scattering leaves everywhere. Anata walks ahead, explaining that those events are the manifestations of different dimensions, just like the Tower of Malevolence from 300 years ago, and that it is an ongoing crisis. Minato questions if it's the same as the tower, and Anata confirms, saying that moreover, the phenomenon hasn't yet ended. Someone from another world is targeting this one with malicious intent. He admits that he doesn't know why Awakeners are getting weaker compared to the era of the tower, and that there are now very few people who possess power equal to the founders. When Minato asks what they should do, Anata says that this is why they exist. Those who can foresee the future with their skills and identify the appearance of these dangers. They inform only the elites who are capable of dealing with them, and those elites are known as the anti-prophecy. Minato stares in awe as he repeats the words. Anata smiles and says that starting today, Minato is one of them. Minato manages to block several of his kicks in a row, and Anata acknowledges that Minato is the first person who's ever been able to do that. He forwards his hand for a handshake and welcomes Minato to the anti-prophecy unit. Minato thanks him as Midori and Rin clap for them from behind. Anata looks ahead at his comrades, saying that he recognizes Minato's skills. They all stand on a nearby building and then suddenly disappear, prompting Midori to comment that they vanished just like mysterious figures. Anata says that it seems they wanted to see it with their own eyes and asks Midori to let him handle things from here, and Midori agrees, leaving Minato in his care. Soon after, they reach the dormitory, where Anata says that he will show Minato his room and asks him to let him carry half of his luggage. At night, Minato sits in his room at the dormitory of the anti-prophecy unit. The founders appear, and Richiro apologizes for not talking with Minato earlier. He says that he will now tell him what their decision is as the founders. He explains that they have decided to train Minato to become the strongest awakener, just like Midori. With everyone together, Minato has the potential to become the strongest awakener in history. Richiro says that Minato will become their disciple, the disciple of the founders, leaving Minato staring in awe. After a pause, Minato asks if they truly want him to become their disciple, and Richiro confirms it. Then Minato questions why, since earlier they were planning to take over his body. Richiro admits that it was indeed considered at first, but now they have decided to compete for something greater. Minato panics, imagining a battle between the founders, and pleads with them not to fight because of him. Richiro clarifies that it was like that in the beginning, but after observing Minato closely, they changed their minds. Instead of using Minato's body for their own benefit, they realized that training him would be far more meaningful and exciting. When Minato defeated Goro, he had managed to copy all of their moves, even though each was used only once. It wasn't at their level or as refined, but he had already grasped the fundamentals. Richiro then asks if Minato truly understands how remarkable that achievement is. He continues, saying he doesn't know whether it's due to Minato's crest of nothingness or not, but his greatest strength is his incredible learning speed, a talent that surpasses even the founders themselves. Hearing all this, tears begin to stream down Minato's face. Until now, he had always been told that he had no talent and wasn't good enough. No one had ever expected anything from him, and everything now feels like a dream. He remembers how he was once ridiculed for failing the hunter qualification test 3 times in a row and told to give up. No one even cared to remember his name or believe in his potential. Yet Midori saw talent in him, and now Richiro himself says Minato has the qualities to become the strongest awakener in history. He clenches his fists, overwhelmed by emotion, wondering if it's truly okay for such happiness to enter his life. The very people he had admired for so long now have great expectations for him. Richiro smiles warmly and reaches out to comfort him, telling him not to cry. He explains that their souls now reside within Minato, especially when he sleeps. Minato can use this inner space freely, unbound by time or distance. Richiro tells him that they will provide him with the equivalent of 100 hours of training every day, training with the anti-prophecy unit in the afternoon and with the founders during his sleep at night. All the founders raise their hands in unison, declaring that they won't let him have a peaceful night's rest anymore. But Minato has already made up his mind. With tears in his eyes and determination in his heart, he shouts his agreement and bows deeply, promising to continue training with them. The next morning, Anata washes his face when Minato steps out of his room to greet him. Anata comments that Minato still looks sleepy, and Minato admits it, saying he isn't used to the routine yet. Anata nods in understanding, but as he's about to mention Minato's first official day, he suddenly senses something unusual and swiftly kicks toward him. Minato dodges easily, asking him to stop joking around so early in the morning, saying he's still tired and just wants to head to the cafeteria. Anata looks confused, realizing his kicks were faster than before. At the cafeteria of the anti-prophecy headquarters, Anata and Minato find a good spot to sit. Nearby, a black-haired girl eats silently. Anata asks if they can join her, but she doesn't respond, so they sit down anyway. Minato recognizes her as one of the comrades who appeared at the end of yesterday's fight. The girl looks at him and coldly says that he's finally here, calling him the new guy. Minato senses that she doesn't seem to welcome him. He begins to introduce himself, but she cuts him off, saying she doesn't care and doesn't even want to remember his name. Pointing her fork toward him, she adds that she'll call him by name only once she accepts him. The black-haired girl stands up, saying it's time for training and that she's taking him with her to take on a prophecy. In 1945, the first book of prophecy was discovered on the continent of Antarctica, buried 3,000 meters deep within the ice. Its writing was rough, as if penned by a child. It predicted that 80 years in the future, the world would face an attack, and it described several upcoming global disasters in vivid detail. The world chose to believe in the book. Sitting in the car with Anata, Midori, Rin, and the black-haired girl, she suddenly questions Minato, asking why he thinks people believed in the book. Minato replies that, more than that, he still doesn't even know her name. The girl responds that she has no obligation to tell him and urges him to answer the question instead. Minato says it's because the prophecies actually came true, but the girl calls him foolish. She explains that if even one of the events written in the Book of Doom were to happen, the entire world would face catastrophe, and asks if he realizes that. Minato panics and turns to Anata, asking how many prophecies there are. Anata replies that there are around 200. Shocked, Minato shouts, asking if he doesn't think the world is already doomed. From the front seat, Midori looks back and calmly says that they have already prevented around 180 of those prophecies. Amazed, Minato then repeats his earlier question, asking again why the world believed in the book in the first place. The girl explains that the explorer who discovered the Book of Doom was named Bernard Russell. The moment he opened it, he was greeted by the words written on the very first page. A flashback shows Bernard opening the ancient book, where the first page contained exact dates, times, and detailed records of the events written within it. Soon after, the group arrives at Tokyo's Sumida Ward, where a dimensional crack of intermediate level has been detected. The black-haired girl rushes forward, but an officer stops her, saying that passage through this road is restricted and asking her to leave. Minato walks beside Anata and asks if it's okay to continue since the officers told them to stop, but Anata confirms it's fine, and they proceed. The black-haired girl begins explaining as they walk. She talks about the dark side of the moon, the invasive pandemic, and the phenomenon of floating trees, each one a major crisis. She adds that the pandemonium outbreak was the one Midori himself managed to contain. Even though there were exceptions within the Book of Doom, they already knew that several other grimoires of prophecy existed across the world. To collect, analyze, and respond to such information, the anti-prophecy unit was established. She then explains using a diagram. Rank 3 prophecies involve the destruction of one or multiple regions. Rank 2 indicates a national emergency. Rank 1 refers to a crisis affecting the planet's entire environment. And finally, the most dangerous, special rank, represents the complete destruction of the world. As they continue walking, Minato asks if handling these tasks will now be their responsibility. The girl replies that it's obvious. Of course it is, now that he's part of the anti-prophecy unit. Nearby, a guard informs Kisaragi that someone is approaching. He turns and spots Anata, the girl, and Minato walking past the warning banners. Believing they are civilians, Kisaragi shouts for them to turn back, warning that the area is dangerous. Ignoring the call, the black-haired girl states that today's prophecy is a rank 3 event. The dimensional crack appears to be intermediate B rank at first glance, but it's actually an A rank, rank 3 disaster known as Yellow Journal. She says the crack will soon expand further. Suddenly, the red glow around the crack intensifies as it splits wider, prompting Kisaragi to question what's happening. Moments later, several A-rank creatures emerge from it. Kisaragi calls out to his team to prepare for battle. The creatures overwhelm several guards, and Kisaragi yells for Minato and the others to fall back. The black-haired girl steps forward and activates her ability, Trismegistus. She touches the ground, and several ethereal weapons rise from it, flying toward the creatures attacking the guards. The weapons strike precisely, while Anata charges in as his feet glow with golden energy, swiftly taking down multiple enemies. Nearby, Kisaragi stares in disbelief, wondering who these people are, since their abilities surpass even his, despite him being in S rank. The black-haired girl tells him to retreat, saying that from their perspective, he's the civilian here. Glancing at their emblem, Kisaragi finally realizes they are government operatives. Just as the creatures are defeated, a giant figure begins to emerge from the crack. It's far stronger than before, an S+ rank being known as the Beast Man, Galia Ulnir. Without hesitation, Anata and the girl rush forward to engage. Kisaragi warns them not to act recklessly, but they ignore him. Anata lands a powerful kick on the creature's head while the girl attacks from the front with her summoned weapons. However, Anata quickly realizes that his kicks are being deflected and activates his anti-physical armor. Galia lunges toward the girl, but Minato steps in, stopping the attack with his bare hand as blue energy flares around him. The ground trembles as the force disperses in a burst of light. Anata watches in awe, recognizing the move as impact shock, wondering how Minato managed to defeat an S-rank creature with a single strike. His suspicions from the morning are confirmed. Minato has become stronger in just one night. Behind him, the black-haired girl mutters in frustration that it wasn't necessary. Minato looks down at his fist, realizing that against enemies with high physical resistance, using chi to damage them from the inside out is the most effective method. He learned it from one attack, the Fist Saint, just last night. The simplest of techniques, the impact attack, had proven its worth immediately. Minato then looks at the girl and asks her to finally tell him her name since he just saved her. The black-haired girl introduces herself as Shinomiya Akane and calls him a newbie. Anata activated his physical enhancement, launching a powerful strike on the monsters with full force. Akane unleashed her Mercurius attack as purple energy burst from her hand, striking a monster directly. They both admitted that, just as Minato had said, it was easier to destroy them from the inside. Soon after, they called out to Minato, saying they were going in. Kisaragi panicked at the idea, shouting that entering a dimensional crack was insane. It was an entirely different world. No matter what, stepping inside was reckless. But from behind, Minato shouted that he was coming too, running toward them. Leaving Kisaragi in disbelief, they all entered the crack, while he stood surrounded by the defeated monsters, admitting that those people were truly incredible. Inside the new world, the team sprinted forward as Kisaragi realized that they were part of a secret human organization. Countless monsters charged at them, and Akane noted that these creatures were still the same as the ones outside. Nothing new. She attacked using a barrage of weapons that took down the oncoming enemies. Watching Akane fight, Minato admitted that she was incredibly strong, prompting Anata to reveal that she was the best area of effect attacker in the entire anti-prophecy unit. Soon after, Akane faced a giant bear-like monster, but Anata stepped in, telling her to leave it to him. The beast charged forward, but Anata dodged gracefully and countered. In a flash, he landed a series of rapid kicks, overwhelming the creature. Minato watched in awe, saying that it was amazing. Eager to learn, Minato stepped forward, imitating Anata's moves and asking if he did it correctly, which impressed him. As they moved ahead, Akane observed that the enemy numbers were dropping and wondered if they had finally reached their target. Soon, they arrived in a vast open area with a massive tunnel before them. Suddenly, a deep rumbling sound echoed from above as something enormous began to emerge. A huge monster stepped out, startling everyone. It was the boss, Blind Minotaurus, classified as SSS+++ rank. Akane stepped forward, realizing it had finally appeared, and asked if it was the ruler of this place. She unleashed her attack, Trismegistus. A golden magic circle appeared on the ground beneath the monster, and countless swords emerged, striking from every direction. While attacking, Akane explained that rule number 1 when facing a strong enemy was to use your most powerful attacks first and not give them a chance to counterattack. She added that she would go all out until she lost consciousness, leaving the finishing blow to Anata. Anata stepped up with a small laugh, saying it must be nice to have such a flashy skill like hers, and added that he understood the plan. The two stood side by side as their energies surrounded them. Watching from behind, Minato commented that their attacks were amazing, but not enough. Hearing that, Anata glared at him in confusion, while Akane asked if Minato had any complaints about her strongest attack, teasing him by calling him a newbie. Suddenly, the monster charged forward with a roar and slammed its weapon into the ground. The earth trembled and dust filled the air. When the dust cleared, they saw the creatures standing unharmed. Their attacks hadn't worked. At that moment, Kilio, the alchemist residing within Minato's consciousness, spoke up, remarking that Akane was exceptionally talented. He said her alchemy's speed, accuracy, and purity were all excellent, and it was a shame for such a gifted person to face danger at such a young age. Kilio gave her full marks for her method against an unknown enemy, but added that she had underestimated the creature's physical resistance. Blind Minotaurus, he explained, had 100% physical resistance. Hearing that, Minato asked what they should do. Kilio smiled and adjusted his glasses, while Anata, standing before the boss, commented that it indeed seemed to have high physical resistance. Akane agreed, admitting they should have brought someone skilled in magic. Following Kilio's instruction, Minato stepped forward and began channeling magic. Kilio asked to take partial control of his body for a moment to demonstrate something to Akane. A powerful energy surge erupted from Minato, striking the boss's foot. Akane watched in awe, asking how Minato was able to use the same ability as her and what exactly he had done. In response, Minato called her a fool, saying that she wasn't flexible enough in her craft. He explained that to become a true alchemist, she had to master the use of substances in all 3 states of matter. As he spoke, silvery mercury began moving forward onto the monster. Minato commanded, "O Mercury, rise." The creature roared as the mercury rapidly intensified, spreading through its body. Anata and Akane watched from a distance as the concentrated energy made the air shimmer. Akane realized that instead of using mercury as a physical weapon, Minato was manipulating it at an extremely elevated state, an intricate, intelligent method. Kilio, observing from within, smiled proudly, saying he was satisfied with Minato's progress, but now he also wanted Akane to become his disciple. Standing there, Minato told him to stop joking around. Moments later, the massive creature collapsed. The team stood there, victorious. With the defeat of the blind monster boss, the rank 3 prophecy, Yellow Journal, had been successfully neutralized. Minato and Anata celebrated their victory, while Akane stood in disbelief. She thought that the only skills an awakener could use were those connected to their crest. Yet Minato, who was supposed to be in the same class as Anata, a jujitsu user, was able to use alchemy just like her. Doubt and curiosity filled her mind as she questioned his true identity. At that moment, Minato approached Akane with a pleasant smile, introducing himself and asking her to remember him as well. Akane shook his hand coldly, replying that she would remember him very well, calling him by his name. Watching the exchange, Anata silently thought to himself that Minato had finally been acknowledged by Akane. Meanwhile, in the main world, Kisaragi and a few wounded guards stood before the dimensional crack. One of the guards wondered aloud what was happening inside. Suddenly, they saw Minato and the others emerging from the crack. The onlookers were amazed, remarking that the team who went inside had returned safely and that the crack had finally closed. After striking a brief pose, Minato asked if their mission was complete. Akane replied that they just needed to report back to HQ, while Anata smiled and commented that it had been a rough mission. As they spoke, Kisaragi approached them and bowed respectfully, thanking them for saving him and his men. He added that he did not expect them to explain their affiliations or what had happened inside. Akane thanked him for his understanding and asked Kisaragi to include the emblem in his report later on, explaining that it would clarify everything. Kisaragi nodded in agreement and requested that they come to their aid if danger ever arose again. As they prepared to leave, Akane told him not to worry, adding that such cases were rare and that they might not meet again. She advised him to return to his normal life. As they walked away, Minato looked back and Kisaragi smiled, murmuring that, after all, they were just civilians. On May 11th, in En Prefecture's K village, outside a quiet house, an elderly lady walked along the path. Nearby, a guard noticed something strange as red energy began to scatter in the air. Meanwhile, at the anti-prophecy headquarters, Minato and the others stepped out of the car. Akane reminded them that they still needed to write their report, while Anata mentioned that they were being summoned. Akane asked why they were being called in immediately after a mission and by whom. Soon after, inside the Anti-Prophecy HQ Library's 3rd conference room, Akane entered and found 2 men waiting. The red-haired man remarked that they had taken quite some time just to close a rank 3 disaster. Minato immediately recognized him. He was one of the people who had shown up after his first fight with Anata. Frustrated, Akane told the red-haired man to stop acting so high and mighty since he wasn't their leader. Standing nearby, Anata urged them both to calm down and turned to Director Kurihara, asking what he needed from them. They all took their seats as Director Kurihara began the briefing. He asked them to watch something and played a video sent by the analysis team. The footage showed a glowing red piece of charcoal, prompting Akane to ask what it was. Kurihara explained that it was a prophecy grimoire. He added that it had been found burned in a volcanic area and that the team had been analyzing it ever since. Hearing this, Minato pointed out that if it was burned, it should be unreadable. Kurihara replied that with recent advances in AI and X-ray technology, they had managed to decipher part of it. The contents remained unclear, but one prophecy specifically mentioned Japan. Everyone reacted in astonishment as Akane murmured about the appearance of a new, complete prophecy. Minato asked if such occurrences were rare, and beside him, Anata admitted that he had never heard of anything like it before. He noted that the anti-prophecy research department was highly skilled and collected information about prophecies worldwide. Normally, he explained, the emergence of a new type of prophecy should be impossible, but this case was different. The red-haired man then asked if all 4 of them were required to investigate the matter. Kurihara acknowledged his sharpness, explaining that while the mission would usually go to their regular members, they were all currently away. That realization made Minato understand why Midori hadn't been there when they returned. Kurihara concluded the meeting by stating that he wanted all 4 of them to serve as scouts for this special investigation. He continues, saying that he will send the details through email and asks them to depart immediately. Minato questions the reason for another mission so soon, but Akane explains that situations like this happen from time to time. Anata steps in, saying that Minato will get used to it soon, while Minato thinks to himself that since the fate of the world is at stake, it's only natural. The red-haired man places his hand on the desk and declares that he, Shinji, along with 3 subcoordinates, will accept the mission. The director tells them that the scale of the mission is still unknown due to the sudden nature of the report, and he urges them to be cautious. Even if the prophecy is indeed taking place, they are instructed to wait for the main force before engaging. Soon after, inside the car, Minato reflects that a special mission of unknown duration is probably just a scouting task, so there's no need to be nervous. Akane glares at him, saying that he just finished his previous mission and should take some rest. She adds that pushing himself too much could cause problems for them later on. Anata lightly agrees, while Akane continues, saying they shouldn't try to order her around. She insists she's fine without sleep. Despite her words, Minato and Anata both take the chance to rest. Sitting in between them, Akane forces herself to stay awake, but soon falls asleep anyway. After some time, someone shouts for her to wake up. Startled, she gets out of the car, complaining that none of them bothered to wake her up. They all stand on a cliff as Minato tells her to look down. Gazing at the village below, they see that it's completely ruined. Anata comments that the situation is already serious and that the prophecy is almost complete. Akane notices a massive magic circle and questions whether the red pillars they see are the 23rd resistance mentioned in the report. Shinji replies that it's exactly like before. It's the same as the incident involving the disappearance of Wakayama's mansion. He explains that 30 years ago, during that prophecy, a dimensional rift nearly opened, and it was a very close call. As he speaks, the red pillars begin to glow, prompting Akane to say they have to move quickly. Standing there, Anata asks what they should do, and Shinji responds that they have to stop it. Hearing that, Akane questions whether he's planning to ignore the director's instructions to wait for the main force. As they argue, they suddenly sense a surge of blue energy. When they turn around, they see Minato surrounded by powerful blue light as he calmly asks if they can move out now. Amazed, Anata remarks that Minato is even stronger than he was this morning, while Shinji adds that it seems Minato won't slow them down. Shinji then rushes forward, telling the others to follow. As they descend the cliff, Akane shouts for him not to be so reckless and to stop giving them orders. Meanwhile, known as the Founder, comments on the nostalgic scent in the air, while Richiro replies that they've encountered it many times throughout their life. Suddenly, a grave begins to glow red, and a hand bursts forth from the ground. Watching this, Richiro murmurs that it's the scent of a forbidden technique.